Welcome to this bite-sized video for the NCFE Digital T-Levels, where we'll be discussing the core exam papers and preparing students for success, with this video focusing on the multiple choice exam questions. Whether you're delivering the Digital Business Services T-Level or the Digital Support Services T-Level, they will both have exam papers designed to assess the core knowledge. These assessments will be available to sit in the summer and autumn terms on a fixed date and time, and do see our key date schedule for the latest information. Students can retake the exam papers and have up to 2 years after completing the T-Level to perform any resets, and it is their best exam performance that counts to their overall grade. And ensure any access arrangements or reasonable adjustments have been submitted and ready to be applied for the live assessments, such as scribes or additional time, to name a few. And students can sit the exam as a traditional paper-based assessment, or there's also an online option available for all students should they prefer to complete the exam digitally, which may also be useful too for those students whose handwriting may be difficult to understand. The assessment is split over 2 exam papers, but it's easier to consider this as one exam paper split into 2 components, as the performance on each individual paper isn't a factor in their grade, and it's the overall mark achieved across both exam papers. Paper A is a 2-hour exam and will assess some of the root core elements, with the same common root core elements being assessed in both T-level pathways. But the exam papers for the pathways will be unique and contain different questions, which is useful when it comes to revision and practicing questions, as you can use questions from either pathway with your students. And then paper B will assess the remaining root core elements, with another 2-hour exam for Digital Business Services. However, Digital Support Services has got additional and unique pathway content that is also assessed. And this is why paper B for Digital Support Services is a half-hour longer in order to account for this. And those core knowledge elements are comprised of the 12 root core elements, those elements that are common for both T-level pathways, and the unique content that's applicable to the Digital Support Services pathway only. But regardless of the pathway, the exam papers are designed to assess the following 3 objectives, which have varying level of demand, with the lowest demand being AO1, assessing the student's ability to recall the relevant knowledge to address the questions, making up 28% of the exam paper. 40% is from AO2 and their ability to apply their knowledge to the situations, scenarios, and information presented in the question. And this can include unfamiliar contexts or scenarios not covered during your delivery, but students would still possess the necessary knowledge to apply to this question. And the highest demand is AO3, where students will need to analyse and evaluate the information presented, such as making justified decisions or choices, or determining the potential impact or outcome for a given situation, as a couple of examples. With this content arranged into the exam papers in the following ways, with paper A having 3 sections assessing the 6 root core elements shown. And while Digital Business Services and the Digital Support Services pathways will have unique papers and questions, they both have this same structure and layout. And paper B will also follow a similar pattern, with 3 sections assessing the same 2 root core elements each. But for Digital Support Services, there's an extra section at the beginning of paper B, which will be assessing the content from the 3 unique core pathway elements. And one of the question types that students will encounter are multiple choice questions. Some key points regarding these questions first is that they are often designed to assess Assessment Objective 1 and the recall of knowledge, but they can include higher demand objectives too. And while they're usually just 1-mark questions, this isn't always the case and can have more marks depending on the form of the question, with a common type being choosing an option, where students are presented with several options and need to choose the correct answer. But other forms could be as a matching activity, such as matching key terms to definitions, or matching risks to suggested mitigations, or matching scenarios to applicable laws or regulations, just to name a few. And the final common type is ordering, such as identifying the correct steps or stages for a process, such as reflective model stages, or the process of computational thinking, as a couple of examples. But regardless of the type of multiple choice question, one tip for students can be to try answering the question before actually checking the options. And if their answer isn't present, then it should serve as a prompt to reread the question, or serve as a confirmation check that they've understood the question correctly. And understanding the question is important, as some questions may be phrased differently than expected, such as a question asking for options that do not apply in a given circumstance. And highlighting aspects like this on the exam paper can increase the chances of students getting the correct option. And then we have the scope of the question, and whether there is a more narrowed focus, such as this question asking about the impacts of unsafe use of digital technology, but focused on psychological impacts. So while all the options are impacts, only one meets that narrowed scope of the question. And one final check is for similar options to choose from, as some can have similar phrasing. With the example question shown, students could easily mix up options 1 and 2, as they both send network packets to devices. But only option 2 is the correct definition for a switch. And if students are really struggling with a multiple choice question, then they should take a moment and carefully reread the question, paying close attention to the information given and even highlighting and circling this information on the exam paper. Then look at the options available, and are there any that the students know are definitely wrong and can eliminate? Then by considering the remaining options carefully, can increase their chances of success and choosing the correct option. We hope you found this useful and have a better understanding of the core exams. And do see our other bite-sized videos that form part of this exam preparation series. Thank you.